Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to craft a half-scale bodice pattern and pattern alteration to an armhole princess dart. So this half-scale bodice pattern we'll be doing a pattern alteration to an armhole princess dart. This pattern will be helpful to beginners and also advanced designers that use freehand or want to start using pattern drafting. So this is the half-scale bodice pattern that will be doing an alteration to get our armhole princess darts. So the first thing you want to do for this pattern is that you have to first measure your front half length. By half scale I mean your half length. So you have to first measure your half length for the front and also your half length for the back, because they are not always the same. When I talk about the front and the back half length, I'll be using my body form to illustrate for you so that you can understand better. From here, from the shoulder to the waistline is the half length for the front, and same goes for the back. You'll see with this body form that they're not always the same, and same applies to the human body too. The back and the front length are not the same. I'll take the measurement now from the shoulder to the waistline, and here I am having 16.5 as the front half length. I'm having 16.5 as the front half length. I'll take the same measurement and the back now. So for the back, here I am having 15.5. You can see a difference of 1 inch. So for some other people, it could be 2 inch, it could be 3 inches, and it could even be 1 inch. So you have to take that measurement on your client. And what you need to do to take that measurement on your client is that you tie your tape, you tie one tape at the waist of your client like this, so that you can get that point there. Once you tie the tape at the waist of your client, then you bring in another tape and take that measurement so that you can get an accurate measurement. Once you tie that tape on your client, the next thing you need to do is just to take your tape measure and measure up to that point you tied on the waist. Then you turn to the back also. And take that same measurement up to that point you tied. So that is how to do it on your client. Once you have determined the front half length and the back half length, the next thing now you need to do is to draft. The first thing I will do is to start by marking a line across the paper. Now I divided my pattern paper into two, and I'll be explaining how I got the division. So what you need to understand is that I'll be drafting the front and the back on this paper. I'll be using this part for the front, and I'll be using this part for the back. For the front, the width of this box is that the box measurement you are working with, you divide it by 4 and you add 2 inches allowance to it. That is the width of this box. And also for this part, your bust measurement divided by 4 and you add 2 inches allowance for it. So I'll be using this part for the front pattern, and I'll be using this part for the back pattern. So the first thing I will do is to mark a line across the paper, and that will be the starting line. So that will be the starting line. So let me go into the markers for this line I have as division line, so it can be more visible. Okay, so this part will be for the front pattern and this will be for the back pattern. So what you want to do next is to mark the half length measurement. The measurement I'm working with, the half length for the front is 18 inches, while for the back it is 16 inches. So I'll be doing that now. 18 inches for the front and the back is 16 inches. Okay, so next thing you want to do now is to get your neck width. So I'll be using a standard neck width of 3 inches by 3 inches for the front. And for the back, I'll use a neck width of 3 inches by 1 inch. The next thing you want to do now is to mark your shoulder measurements divided by 2. So the one I'm working with, the shoulder I'm working with is 15 inches, so I'll divide it by 2, that will give us 7.5. So I've marked the 7.5 here, and I'll also do the same thing to the back. So from this 7.5 mark or the shoulder point now, we need to mark our shoulder slant. So for the front, the standard you can use for the shoulder slant for the front is 1.5 inches. While for the back, the standard shoulder slant is 1 inch. So I'll go ahead now and mark my 1.5 for the front. And I'll connect it back to the neckline. Then for the back, I'll go ahead and mark the 1 inch for the shoulder slant. Now I'll also connect it back into the neckline. So what we want to do next is to get our chest line. To get your chest line, you divide your bust measurement by 6, and whatever you get, you add 1.5 inches to it. So for the measurement I'm working with, the bust measurement is 36. 36 divided by 6 is 6 inches. Then I'll add 1.5 to that 6 inches. That will give me 7.5. So it's from that shoulder slant that you mark your 7.5. So you're supposed to mark your shoulder from the shoulder slant there. You mark your 7.5 downwards. But since we have 1 inch here, so I'll add that 1 inch to 7.5. That will give me 8.5. So I'll just go ahead and mark it from the starting line. I'll just go ahead and mark 8.5. So I'm marking from the back pattern, and I will extend it into the front. So I'll go ahead and mark 8.5 from the shoulder line. So on this chest line, now let's label it chest line. The next thing you want to do now from this chest line is that you want to mark your shoulder measurements here too on the chest line. So remember, we use 7.5 inches as the shoulder measurement. That is what we are going to do here also. You mark that same 7.5 inches on the chest line. Then you connect with a ruler to the shoulder slant. You do the same thing here also. You mark your 7.5 inches and you connect it to the shoulder slant. The next thing you want to do here now is to mark your bust measurements. The bust measurements divided by 4. You mark it on the chest line. So the bust I'm working with is 36. So 36 divided by 4 is 9 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark the 9 inches at this point. I'll go ahead and mark the 9 inches. And then the next thing you want to do is to, for this back pattern, let me label it back so that you won't get confused. This is the back and this is the front. So once you've marked your bust measurements at this point, your bust measurement divided by 4, the next thing you want to do now is to divide whatever you have left from the shoulder slant, divide it into 2 and get the midpoint. Once you get the midpoint, you go in by 0.5 and mark. Then you come in with your curve and connect these 3 points together, 2, 3, to form your armhole. So we are going to do the same thing for the front. Now, you mark the bust measurement divided by 4. Mark your 9 inches like this. But for the front, you come up by 3 inches. This can work for anybody. So you come up by 3 inches, then you mark. Then from that 3 inches point, you go in by 3/4 of an inch, 0.75, then you mark also. Then you connect these 3 points together to form the armhole for the front. For this front pattern, you have to get the measurements from the shoulder to the bust point. So for the measurements I'm working with, from the shoulder to the bust point, it's 11 inches. So I'll mark that now. So this is the bust line, and this part here is the waistline. So now you go in with your bust span measurement divided by 2, and for the measurements I'm working with, it is 4 inches. I'll mark it on this line, on the waistline, and I'll also mark it on the bust line, and I'll connect with a ruler. The next thing you want to do now is to determine the dart you want to take in at the waist part. So I'll go ahead and use 1 inch for the dart, and I'll connect it to the bust line. So the next thing I want to do now is to take my waist measurement. The waist measurement divided by 4. The waist I'm working with is 30. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. And I'll add this 1 inch on both sides that I took here. That is 2 inches. So 7.5 plus 2 inch is 9.5. And I'm just going to mark it here. And I'll connect it back to the bust measurement. Like this. So let's keep this first and move to the back. So for the back, this is our waistline. What you want to do at this back is to tighten the center back first. To eliminate that bulge that most people usually get on their dress when they finish sewing, you have to tighten the waist part. So now to tighten this waist center back, I'll go in by 0.75. And I'll mark, then I'll connect it back into this formal line that we have here. So this is it. I'll just connect it and straighten it back. So that is it. This is to eliminate any bulge at the back of your dress or at the back of your top. So you can see that there's a little bit of shortage here. Like you have some, so you have to replace it back. Whatever you took out, you have to replace it back on this chest line. So I have about 0.25 here, and I'll just replace it here. So now moving on, you have to measure your nipple to nipple here on the back also. So the nipple to nipple is measurement is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. You mark it here, and you also mark it on the chest line, and you connect with a ruler. The next thing you want to do now is to come down by 1 inch from this chest line. So that is where this dart will start from. For the back dart, I'll take in 1/2 inch on both sides, and I'll connect it. So the next thing you want to do now is to take your waist measurement. The waist divided by 4, 7.5. Then you have this dart you took out. That is plus 1. That will give us 8.5. So I'll be marking 8.5 now. is for the back. Now we are done with the back. The only thing you can do is to add your zip allowance now. So you can decide to add a zip allowance of 1 inch. Add your zip allowance of 1 inch. And then connect. So the next thing you want to do now, because of the difference of the front and back half length, the difference is 2 inches, and that is what will be taken in as our bust dart. The difference between the front and the back half length is what will be taken in as our bust dart. So from this bust line now, you come down by 2 inches. And you mark like this, and you connect it back to this bust point. So this is all on your half scale bodies. This is all on your half scale bodies. The only thing you want to do now is so that by the time you close in your bust dart, you can just come out by from the center here. Come out by 0.75 and connect it back like this, so that by the time you close your bust dart, everything will be accurate. And that is it. Pattern. What we want to do next is that we convert this half scale pattern we have here to a armhole princess dart pattern. That's the next thing for us to do, is to convert this half scale pattern to a armhole princess dart pattern. But the first thing I want to do here now is to do our shoulder tightening, shoulder and neckline tightening. The essence of doing this shoulder and the neckline tightening is that sometimes when you finish making an outfit, you discover that the shoulder part is not sitting well, and when you go back to your sewing machine and you take in maybe like ½ inch or 0.25, you realize that everything is now okay. So to avoid that stress of after making your outfit you are going back to adjust your shoulder, you have to do the shoulder and neckline tightening. So standard for the front pattern is that you come down by ½ inch. You come down by ½ inch here on this line, and you connect it back to the shoulder slants. Come down by ½ inch and you connect it back like that. That is how you should do your shoulder and neckline tightening. That is how to do it. So for the back, what you want to do is that for the back, you come down by 0.25 for the back. So you come down by 0.25 and you connect it back to the shoulder slants. So that is for the back tightening. So that is why I'm using another marker. So this is pattern alteration we are doing. Yeah. So the next thing you want to do now is that for this front pattern, you need your underbust measurements. For this pattern now, you need your underbust measurements. If you are transferring to a princess dart, to an armhole princess dart pattern, you will need your underbust. So the underbust measurements, the length of your underbust I'm working with is 14 inches. From the shoulder to the underbust is 14 inches. So I'll go ahead now and mark it. And I'll connect it. So the next thing you want to do here is this is the underbust line. The next thing you want to do now is to do your underbust tightening. You do your underbust tightening. But before we go to the underbust tightening, since we are doing a armhole princess cut, what you want to do now is just to bring in your curve, and from this midpoint you connect it back to the bust point. After connecting like that, you need to do your tightening, the armhole tightening. After connecting, you need to do your armhole tightening. So to do the tightening, I'll go in by 1 inch here. So I'll mark 1 inch here to do the tightening. And I'll connect it back. I have 1 inch here, and the next thing you want to do is to mark 1 inch towards this part again. So from this part is where you'll be marking the armhole. So this is it here. So that is what you want to have at that point. That is the new armhole. So now the next thing you want to do now is the underbust tightening. So depending on the nipple to nipple measurements of the client or of yourself. So for nipple to nipple of 8 inches, you can mark from this midpoint, from the center here, you can mark 3 inches. You mark 3 inches like that. If this will work for a person that has a nipple to nipple of 8 inches. If it is a nipple to nipple of 9, you go ahead and mark 3.5. If it's a nipple to nipple of, let's say, 7 inches, you reduce it, you mark like 2.7 or 2.5. So for this pattern, the nipple to nipple is 8, so 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that means I'm using 3 here, so I marked out 3 inches here. And the next thing you want to do is that the round underbust measurement. For this pattern, the round underbust measurement is 28. 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. Because we already marked 3 inches here, the next thing you want to do is to bring out that 3 inches and continue marking the 7 inches. So now I'll continue marking the 7 inches, and that is where the 7 inches is. So I'll now mark what I have to from here to here. I have 1 inch, so I'll bring my 1 inch back to this part and I'll mark. Then I'll connect that line to the waistline. And I'll connect this part to the waistline. So the next thing you want to do now is to connect this point to the bust line. But don't make it too curvy. Be mindful of your curve. Don't make it too curvy. So you see what I did? It doesn't matter that it is not touching this part. Just make sure you're having a smooth curve. It's not pointed. So the next thing I'll be marking it is to connect this to this point also. So be mindful of having curves. You don't need curves at this point. No, make sure it is not too curvy. And this is what I have by the time I connect it. So now we have the armhole princess cut with an underbust tightening and also a shoulder tightening. So now I'll move to the back. The only thing you need to do to the back at this point is that from this midpoint, you're just going to connect it to this point. So I'll just connect it like this. So I've connected it, and this is what we have. I'll just withdraw my armhole by coming out by ½ inch, so by the time we are joining back the patterns, there won't be any shortage at this point. So I'll just draw out my armhole like that and connect it back. Okay, so this is what we have for both the front and the back, and this is our armhole princess dart. The last thing I'll be doing is to change the neckline of this pattern. I don't want to go in with a standard neckline. I want to use a neck width of, we use a neck width of 3 inches here. I want to use a neck width of 4 inch. So I'll go ahead and mark my 4 inch, and this is where my 4 inch is, and I'll connect it back. I'll maintain, if I don't want to maintain the 3 inches, I'll go in with a neck depth of 4 inch, and I'll connect. So note that we are following this new line, don't forget. So that is the new neckline. So whatever you do for the front, you have to also do the same thing at the back. So I'll still maintain the neck depth of 1 inch, but the neck width has to change. So we'll be using a neck width of 4 inches now for this back, and this is where the 4 inch mark is. So I'm just going to be connecting it back like this. I'll still maintain my 1 inch depth. So cutting it off like that. So I'll cut out the patterns. So you can see that the front and the back are matching up.